The group is suing the MTA, the Department of Transportation, and the Traffic Mobility Board, arguing that if the program moves forward as planned, their neighborhoods will suffer negative environmental and economic consequences.
Joining us right now with more is Susan Lee, president of New Yorkers Against Congestion Pricing Tax, and Catherine Freed, former city council member and retired New York State Supreme Court Justice. Nice to have you both here.
Thank you.
So let me ask you, how is this lawsuit different from the other lawsuits that have already been filed in New York City?
Well, one thing is we're a group of like-minded New Yorkers who've come together to file this lawsuit. It's a class action suit, and basically every neighborhood in the city is represented because every neighborhood is impacted differently. So we have a different outlook than a lot of the other lawsuits because we're concerned about what's going to happen to us.
Susan, is there one little thing that we can take away from your lawsuit?
So our lawsuit is a class action lawsuit that covers all neighborhoods in New York City, all residents from all walks of life, covering the 5 boroughs. We also have the Common Sense Caucus from the New York City Council, so it's a bipartisan effort. And also the group started off as a grassroots organization with members from all over the city, from the Bronx, from Queens, from Brooklyn, from Manhattan, within and outside of the congestion zone.
You know, the thing is, this is not only your group, but we heard the governor of New Jersey yesterday, Phil Murphy, former Governor Cuomo. I mean, there's been a lot of voices that have argued against this, but the MTA, they say they fired back with a response, and then I'm going to put it up here on the screen so you can read it at home with us. But the MTA, their chief policy and external relations person, John McCarthy, says that the issue has been exhaustively studied in the 4,000-plus page environmental assessment and will be reevaluated for the adopted tolling structure before tolling commences. It's time to move forward and deal with the congestion that's clogging roads and slowing down emergency vehicles, buses, and commerce while also polluting the air we breathe. Now, that's the statement from the MTA. And I'll ask you, Susan, here, they say that the issue's been studied. First of all, your response in general to that, but there is a difference between an environmental study and an environmental review.
That's correct. And, one of the things that I want to say is in that 4,000-page report, it didn't talk about the 28,000 testimonies provided from New Yorkers who are against congestion pricing, how it'll negatively impact their lives. We have seniors, we have people who are low and moderate income who rely on driving to work. I mean, not everyone has a 9-to-5 job that has reliable transportation. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is that the MTA was asked to improve public transportation alternatives and also the subway, and that hasn't been done, and so therefore congestion pricing shouldn't go forward.
So Catherine, you're a former justice. You know the legal wranglings. What do you think about your lawsuit and how it might have some kind of impact?
Well, actually, and also what Kurt just asked, they talk about moving forward and their 4,000 pages, but if you look at it, they initially came out with a bunch of alternatives, and if you read what their final decision was, there's not really a plan there. There's a generality. They talk about how it's going to impact people and how it's going to make things better, but if you look for the specifics, they're not there. It's one of the reasons we're bringing this lawsuit, because the federal system signed off on our only going through an environmental assessment, but we need a full environmental impact statement.
So I know the environment is very important. I get it. But what about the business impact? I mean, you're talking about Broadway, which is already suffering.
Right.
They are very concerned about this.
Yes.
And, full disclosure, I have a restaurant in Midtown. I'm very concerned about it as well.
I'm concerned as well. And, there are 600 small businesses within the congestion pricing zone. They didn't do an impact study on how it will affect businesses. Goods and services will increase. It creates a competitive disadvantage for businesses inside the congestion zone because their costs of goods and services will be higher than those that are outside of the zone. And a lot of the times, if you look at other cities, their congestion pricing ends at 6:30, 7 o'clock. Ours is until 9. It will decimate.
And the weekends, too.
Yes, and the weekends, and that will decimate our nightlife, our hospitality industry, Broadway, Times Square, Chinatown, Little Italy, those are some of the neighborhoods that have raised their concerns. And that's why our lawsuit is really important, because we have 34 plaintiffs represented, small businesses, funeral homes, teachers, elderly. So our lawsuit is very robust.
We got about 15 seconds here, Justice Freed. Is your group against congestion pricing or against this plan at this time?
We're against this plan. I'm in favor of congestion pricing, and I gotta mention the Lower East Side. No one mentions us. We're like the forgotten part of New York. We have, environmental justice areas. We have areas with high respiratory diseases, heart diseases. That's the very area in the congestion pricing district that's getting the hardest hit, and we have no subways. The subways are almost a mile away. The buses are erratic, and none of the subways are accessible. If you are at all mobility impaired, you can't even get into the subways, and yet the MTA keeps saying we can do this here because everyone has easy access to mass transit. Well, we don't.
Well, this issue will continue. It has continued, and
What
it seems
time
though
are you
every day.
filing
Yes.
today?
Before 11 o'clock.
Okay. Hurry up.
The clock is ticking. We have to let them go. Thank you so much for joining us, Justice Freed and Susan Lee. All right, when we come back, we will discuss whether or not this is a good time to find a job and